Greetings and salutations, my beloved passionates, newcomers, visitors, and guests. Welcome to another episode of the Passion PSA Podcast, where I, Passion No Last Necessary, your Get You Right guru, issue a weekly public service announcement about whatever I have observed or was on my mind. This is a for your consideration zone where the objective is to offer a perspective you may not have previously considered, to both expand your thinking and to assist you in becoming a better version of yourself, and for others. This is a safe space, but not necessarily a delicate one. I will never rob you of your right to feel whatever it is that you are feeling, the same way I won't sugarcoat what it is that I have to say. I'm not going to go into all of the other specifics. Today's episode is a pre-recorded one because we have a guest. I know a lot of you have been waiting for the guests, and they are coming. Just bear with me, because remember, I am a one-person team of 7. That said, I did not do the affirmations with my guest this week because there were so many technical difficulties and issues. So I am going to make sure that we have a moment to do affirmations together. And I just wanted to go over a few quick housekeeping things. Again, we do have a guest, so this episode was recorded in one straight installment, shall we say, but I divided it into 2 because I know you're generally accustomed to having shorter episodes with me that don't really exceed 25 to 30 minutes. And I didn't want for there to be so much information that you weren't able to absorb it all in one shot. So this week you'll get about an hour, next week you'll get the next hour, but it's great information. Also, I don't know why, but for some reason, the visual is somewhat glitchy. I don't know if that's because of the transfer from platform to platform or from device to device, but the audio is clear and the message is clear, and that's really what matters. So we're going to get into the affirmations. Once I've said all of the affirmations, we're going to go from there straight into the episode. Just wanted to jump in. This is why you see me looking different here than you will see me looking in the episode. But I just wanted to pop in, say a few words, and then get out of your way. So I'll see you in a little while. Passion public service announcement. Passionate. Let me tell you something. So what is this Passion PSA podcast? Who am I? Well, they call me Passion, short for Passion No Last Necessary. Why is there no last name necessary? Because the first name says it all. I am Passion and all that embodies. What do I do here? I give you the life coaching that you know you need, but don't enroll yourself in. When did I start? Actually, 2017. I'd leave a PSA on my Instagram regarding something I'd observed, and now we've evolved to this. Why do I do it? Why not? If even one person is able to take away one thing that changes their life, someone else's life, or changes the world for the better, then I've done what I was charged to do. So come on in, sit and listen for a while. There's something here for everyone at the Passion PSA Podcast. I am unbound. I am free. I am loosed. I am the author of my own story. I am healing. I speak in truth. I stand in truth. I stand for truth. I am heard. My words are well received. My intentions are received as they are intended. My actions are aligned with my intentions. My words and my actions match. I release the anxiety of old hurts. I usher in new healing. I usher in new health. It is well. I am well. All is well. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Greetings and salutations, passionates. How are you today? I hope you are wonderful. I hope you are phenomenal. I hope that everything that you are experiencing is, if it's not giving you pleasure and it's not giving you joy, that it is at least giving you a discernible, comprehensible lesson that you are able to benefit from on all levels. I know sometimes it feels bleak, but it is well, as well. Today, we are going to have a guest. There's no script. It's just free-flowing conversation. I'm really excited about it. So we're going to jump in. I'm going to bring her in the room right now. And let's get straight to it.
Hi.
How are you?
I am present.
I know that's right.
I am present.
Okay.
Yes,
And I accept that. I receive that.
Yeah.
I am grateful for your presence.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. You look good.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm loving the background, loving the whole ambiance, ma'am. Can you hear me good?
I can.
Okay.
Right. I can.
Trying to make sure I'm using the equipment, you know.
Listen, I had to just give up on the equipment, okay? Because the war. I had to just, I threw up the white flag and I was like, you know what, I'm good. So God bless the computer for having its own microphone, and bless whosoever ears can receive the message. That's too bad, because this is what we're doing.
Yeah, period.
Okay.
Period. Yes.
Introduce yourself.
Oh man.
Because I want you to tell them what you want them to know about you, as much or as little.
That one, I don't know why that always gets me, like in introducing myself, because it depends on like what environment I'm in. Like at the end of the day, I'm Ish, right? But Ish do a whole bunch of stuff, and there's a whole bunch of people all in one. Right. But some people call me coach.
Okay.
Some people
Why
call
they
me
you coach?
Huh? Oh, because I'm a coach the shit out of you in life. Spiritually, business, like I'm gonna be in your ass.
Okay.
That's why they call me coach. I'm that coach that you love, right? Like even if you had gym, that one coach that no matter what sport it was, everybody loved them because they know, they see the best in you. You know, that's me. And especially in business. But they call me coach. Some people two little people call me mom. Well, they ain't little anymore. A wife, disabled veteran. I use the disabled because that's what the terms that the people use, but I'm a superhero, like a mug. Yes, period. I am definitely a superhero. And I wear that one very proudly, humbly though. A humble proud for that. Because you got to go through some things to be this kind of superhero, you know? So, but yeah, I'm an open book. That's who Aysha is. You got questions, ask me. Okay. Just make sure you prepared for what the answer is going to be.
Y'all heard? So brace yourselves, because you know, I try to give it to you raw and uncut, but I try to edit myself, you know, just in case the little ones are listening, because I know like my godchildren, they subscribe, and so, you know, I try to censor myself, but we're going to give it to you raw and uncut, and you're just going to have to hold that, okay?
Period. Like, I ain't even going to hold you. I'm Auntie Ish. I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and they already know. Like, I'm the aunt that you hit up. I'm the one that, like, is followed. Like, shout out to all my nieces and nephews, though, because they let me follow them. I'm in the close friends. So I see the stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I see it, but it's because Auntie ain't judging you.
Right.
You know, because I understand what judgment truly is. So when people understand that, you can tend to remove it if you choose to.
So let's start there. So what is judgment?
Judgment is nothing but a projection of your own shit.
Y'all ready?
Oh, my bad. Oh, I gotta work
to it. To get right to it. Okay, it's a projection of your own.
Yes, projection of your own
whatever.
Stuff. Yes.
Let's unpack that a little bit further.
It depends on what the person's going through, right? Like what happens is, for example, most people, they get the chance to judge via social media because you're scrolling mindlessly, right? And without any purpose, and you see someone else in their house, or someone else successful in business, or someone else in a relationship. And the first thing you do is, man, why they got that? That's a judgment. You're projecting what you do not have, or what you are not allowing yourself to see in that moment. And allowing yourself to go and receive for what's you. And what you're doing is looking at someone else's stuff, and that whole thing of what they say, the grass is greener, right? It's always greener on the other side, but you forget this. You're so busy looking at that other grass. You've never tended to your lawn. You've never nurtured or cared for your harvest. You've never even looked at your own property, because you're too busy looking at everyone else's stuff, judging why do they have it? How come you do not? Again, it's the projection. It's the projection of what we feel as though we lack when we're not lacking anything. It's so much easier to point outwards instead of going inward.
So how do we get people to see, or how do we get them to fully comprehend to understand that it is in fact based on their own feelings of either insignificance, of inferiority, because there are a lot of people who would say, no, I'm not judging that because I feel like I'm lacking anything. I just don't agree with it because I feel like this is not how you should conduct yourself, or this isn't what you should be doing, because in alignment with this, then it should be that. How do we get them to see that this is still them projecting their own stuff, and it's actually them living within certain boundaries and within certain confines, right, that they've chosen for themselves because this is what they've opted into. That's the agreement that they've opted into, and not necessarily that everybody else is supposed to be a part of that agreement. How do we get them to see that everybody's supposed to have their own agreements, and based on their own agreements, they're not out of alignment with anything?
So that one is honestly, some people would say that's layered, but it's actually not. And it has a very simple answer to it, right? Stop looking at other people's stuff. And that's really that simple. Because I know I had the words, and I'm going to gather them back, because it's the one I'm censoring myself, because I promise I have no filter, but I am going to love on the babies, right? Because I want to be respectful to everyone's platform, regardless if I have a filter or not. Right. If you tell me your platform has a filter, I'm going to respect that, right? But I do have to remember my words. But people need to address their traumas. That's the thing. Right? What happens is your trauma told you this is how you're supposed to conduct life, live life. And because of what you've experienced and what your life patterns have said, this is what aligns. We think that our traumas are everyone else's traumas. And the reality of it is everyone has traumas, but each of our traumas, each individual person experiences different trauma. For example, I came up and grew up in a very dysfunctional, highly dysfunctional household with my mother, to the point where at one point in time, you could not get me to state that it was a dysfunctional home. My mother was the best of all of the things, how we are raised, the alignment of it. This is your mother. You only get one of them. Don't you dare, about all of that, right? But the reality of it is, when you stay in a place of trauma, you can overlook your reality and what's real. And I had to give space to understand, whoa, a lot of the things I was taught was absolutely wrong. And what I thought aligned and what didn't. I gave space for what Aysha, endured. And what I had to learn in the dysfunctional home that I grew up in, being the oldest of 10, my mother had 7 children, 6 of us were living at that particular time. Each of my siblings have their own trauma that is outside of Aysha, that has nothing to do with me. So if that's true for my household that I grew up in, that means that has to be significantly more true for people who don't know each other. So when we're talking about how do we get people to see a thing, we all have to give space for what we've endured. And even though we may meet people who've gone through the similar, no one has gone through exactly what you've gone through, because there's only one of you. And that's the reality of it. The other part is there's going to be people who don't want to see it. And the people who do, we have to accept that they don't. And it is okay that they want to walk around this world with their eyes wide shut.
Heard that? Okay, because I want to make sure that I give a moment, right, for the statements to breathe, okay? Because that was a lot. The whole purpose of this episode was for us to discuss trauma. So Sis and I are in the DMs and we're talking to each other, and we're actually talking about coming together for an episode. And Sis is talking to me the same way I talk to y'all. And I recognize in her response that we have there's somewhere where we have a similarity, right? Sis says to me, I apologize for X, Y, and Z. And I said, you don't have to apologize for explaining in detail. That doesn't trouble me. I value that. And she said, I was responding from my trauma. And I recognize that as something that I deal with, something that I go through, because there are times when I either try to edit myself down so that I can abbreviate what I have to say, or if I'm not able to abbreviate it, then I speak quickly so that I can get everything out in one time and you can be able to understand it in the time that I've delivered it. But I want to say everything, but I'm trying to fast forward it so that it takes less time for me to say it, because you have so many people like, oh, she's long-winded. Oh, I mean, that could have been answered in a statement. Okay. And the next time you want that answer your own question, because this is how I answer questions. I give you all of the information. So now that you decided that you weren't going to take in the information I gave you, that's on you. But I gave you the information. So this isn't an issue of I didn't give you what you needed. This was an issue of you decided to leave some stuff behind. However, because there's been emotional damage from the constant negative feedback, oh, it's this, and oh, it's that, and oh, it's this. Now it's a reflex to be apologetic for who I am or how I am. Well, why am I apologizing? So it's that. So I wanted for us to come together and discuss this, responding from trauma, because passion is, most of us are. We are constantly responding from our traumas, but most of us are not ready to even admit that we've been traumatized.
Yep.
So let's talk about trauma. Let's talk about it on different levels, because you said that you alluded to the fact that you fall under the title, under the category of disabled veteran, right? So can we talk about that a little bit?
Woo, child, you went straight to the jugular, huh?
I mean, because
you went. No, I love it though. I love it though,
because if we're gonna talk about trauma, let's talk about, because trauma comes on many different levels.
Yes,
right?
It does.
And most of us can sort through, and we can relate to, and we can find comfort in discussing physical trauma, right? But it's the emotional traumas and the mental traumas that we're not really, and the spiritual traumas that we're not really equipped to deal with, or ready, or even excited about dealing with. So most of us suppress, right? And then we charge it to the game. No, it's not this, it's that. No, it's not this, it's that. Because we can't say it's physical. Physical doesn't, that usually there's somebody else involved in physical. But with mental, it might not be somebody else involved. It might be you versus you. And so we don't want to deal with it. So that's the thing, though. It's a third part. You forgot. So this is the part. You have physical that can incorporate someone else, right? Yeah. And mental, that's you. But you also have a mental that can create a physical where you versus you. And that's what military did with me, where I became the person who was the physical against me, because the mental trauma that I was experiencing within the military, because I was a super soldier. Again, my upbringing in the household that I mainly grew up in created me to be the perfect soldier. I take directions and orders very, very well, and I execute even faster than people could imagine. And so I did things in my military career in a very short time frame that most people they couldn't fathom. I came into the military as nothing. I was a fuzzy, what they call no rank, E1. And I made the rank of E4 in 19 months with a profile. And I had gotten injured, and I had gotten a rank not given to me during one particular time because someone asked me on a date and I kindly refused and rejected. Therefore, my rank was refused and rejected. So I said, okay, you got it. And I made sure I made up for that time. And I did not lose my time frame at no point in time. So like, my upbringing prepared me to be the perfect soldier, and being the perfect soldier completely and utterly broke my body. I walked around in Afghanistan for 2.5 months with my left hip rotated out of space. Literally, I had my hip out of placement. And I tried to hide it, because you're a good soldier, and a good soldier. And I knew my value. I didn't understand my value until recently, right? But I did know that I had things that I did only. That part I've always known. I've always been able to pay attention to, no matter what workplace and environment I was in, what I brought to that particular environment. I just didn't associate the value necessarily with it, but I knew if you removed me, you would have to have at least 3 people to come and take my place. At least 3.
no matter where I was. So I knew that part, and that the psychological of that was I can't let ... down. And so because of that, I put myself in harm's way in moments of just walking, right? Again, when I went to Afghanistan, I went with a knee injury, and I came back with multiple: bilateral knee, bilateral hip. I injured the lower vertebrae in my back, upper vertebrae in my two up here, two in the bottom. I came back with severe PTSD, traumatic brain injury, TBI. I have short-term memory loss. I have seizure disorder that is stress-induced and PTSD-induced. And when people hear that, they normally think negative. And it's like, no, actually stress is stress, good and bad. And I have experienced good stress seizures and bad stress seizures. It does not matter. That is why I'm in a constant flow. That is why I am always who I am. And that is why I don't have a filter, because I have no time for a filter in a way that people couldn't imagine, right? So if I cuss at you, I promise I won't curse you though. But, that's neither here nor there. And that might be over people's heads, but we'll get to that at another time. But my military career was the most I had to fight non-physical in my life. I had non-physical, because I'm a physical fighter. I am rough and tough with my Afro puffs, rage, rock on with your bad self. Oh, I wasn't, if I argue with you, that is because I want to not fight. I want to create resolve and resolution. I don't want to go there, because back in the day, we're not talking, we fighting. And I was way more into physical, and the military forced me to learn how to fight mentally. And I'm actually, with all that I've experienced, I'm absolutely grateful for that. I am grateful for that shift, because I had to learn how to become my own advocate. After coming back from Afghanistan, I thought that was going to be the hardest thing I endured. And yet I had no idea the 12 years, because it's been, March will be 12 years since I deployed to Afghanistan. I had no idea what the last decade would look like, going from learning how to be my own advocate for my medical, fighting against people when I was in the military, mentally, not physically, on people who either I was too much of a super soldier for them. And also the other part of, I'm not an ugly woman, right? So we're going to go ahead and put that out there. When you deploy, and this is not everywhere, but per my experience, when a deployment happens, the males will pick who they feel as though their counterpart is. Sometimes the females, if they are attracted to the same sex, will pick who their counterpart will be. Now, will the counterpart always know? No, not hardly. And having to be quick-witted in all the ways to keep myself safe without putting other people in harm's way. Although I was ready. And if at any point in time I needed to take someone's life so that they did not violate me again, because I was not experiencing that again, I was ready for that too. But I was way more ready and prepared to come home to my children. So being quick-witted with making comments of, oh, my period is on, from a male who, you have me isolated in this vehicle, and it is just the two of us. And we were on what we call a blackout fob, which means there is no lights whatsoever. You have a headlamp, and we are in a vehicle, and we are in an isolated environment. And I got to stay safe, because I know that even if I had said, no, stop, leave me alone, get away from me, any of those kinds of things, it would have gotten violent. So I was quick on my feet and made a statement that made that person go, oh, all right. Now, at no point in time was he ever near me, but I knew what was about to happen. We were already in these moments where I'm having to key. That's another thing. The sexual harassment is real, and it is intense. Like, I had a female sergeant once come into the bathroom while I was showering and make me stand at parade rest while I was naked and soap is dry going down my body. And most people would think that that's not a big deal, but I knew that
parade rest, because what
parade rest is hands behind your back, interlocked like this, behind your back, standing to show respect to your superior. So I'm standing in a shower, nude, soap running down my body. And she said, parade rest. That means lock those hands, get in position. no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. And standing through that without a tear, I'm not going to show any of the things. And I'm even here for if I have to combat you in any way. But in that moment, I just need to go ahead and do it. I'm not going to go back and forth with you like, hey, Sergeant, I'm not dressed. You're right. You want to get a sneak peek? There's your sneak peek. Please know I remember this though. Right? Like, so the mental fortitude that I had to build during my experience in the military and the things that I had to endure created traumas that I didn't realize until fast forward 2018. And I'm experiencing a trauma in real time with a cousin of mine, cousin brother. And I'm in this, but I am seeing him as my battle. I'm seeing we're at war in the inside of my brain. And that was when it was like, okay, listen, military did a number on you. There's way more up here psychologically than I could have imagined. But I also have physical ailments that I deal with day in, day out, that they don't really fully acknowledge the way they should, but it's okay. I do. And honestly, that taught me how to give myself grace. Man, like that's where I birthed be kind to yourself. Please, like when we're talking about dealing with our traumas, accepting our traumas, that starts with being kind to yourself, that you endured these things. Right? When we're talking about why won't people address their traumas? Because it hurts. What we have to remember is that the majority of the pain already happened. The bulk of it already happened.
Say it one more time.
The bulk of the pain already happened. Right? So what we think is about to create this new wound, it's allowing you to clean out and dress the wound that's there. It's allowing you to pull out the debris.
Not debriding. Wait.
Yeah, you dig. I'm just saying.
Yes,
that's what happened.
You ain't here preaching. I ain't got to do no work today, y'all. This is glorious. Oh, thank you, God.
You knew this was going to happen, child.
And I'm grateful. Because putting these episodes together be a lot of work.
It does.
So
it does. And kudos to you for it. And I'm looking forward to more conversations with you, with other people, yes. And your friend group, yes. Aysha, that will show up for you and show out and knowing, understanding why they may not in the moments that they do. Because this is not for the faint or weak at heart, by no means. It is not like, for example, 2020 opened everyone's eyes to the fact that the world is hurting, right? But what about the people prior to 2020 that had that 2020 vision?
Are we talking about business in front of these people?
You see, like, and that's those of us that were already seeing, we have to be even more patient because we remember when we couldn't see. We remember that first time of opening that eye to man, right? And even then, there's been traumas I've experienced recently that have opened up old wounds in ways that I didn't know I needed open because I didn't know they were wounds. There's truths. There's so many Black and brown people that we have ancestral trauma in us that wasn't passed down necessarily through DNA, but passed down through habit. Right? Yeah, my brain just went like, I want to make sure I stay on topic. I want to go too far in the rabbit holes, but honey.
I mean, but that's what we're talking about. We're talking about trauma, and trauma comes from so many different places and it comes on so many different levels. And sometimes you've explored one area and so you feel like you've done the work and you've done a work.
Yes.
But you haven't done the work.
Yes. Because the work is every day though.
Yes.
The work is every day. The work is consistent habits that you give space to see what works for me and leaves me in a positive mindset, in a positive place, and what does not, and not necessarily negative, but if it does not make you feel good within, why are you doing it?
So here's a question. What about when what you're doing does make you feel good within, and it is problematic for others? Because that's a real thing too. You got a lot of people out here who are comfortable in causing trauma because that is the way that they cope with their own.
So that's where I challenge on if that actually makes them feel good, even from a psychological standpoint, right? Just because you get endorphins from it does not mean it makes you actually feel good. It's just like the crack addict or the alcoholic. No matter what the substance is that you're going to get, you're actually numbing and nullifying the thing. You're not bringing you're not making it vibrant. You're not bringing life to it, right? So those who are operating in a space of this thing that they do, this is how they cope. They cope with bringing drama. They cope with, that is a learned behavior and a learned habit, right? Like most people are actually very much so empathetic. And I learned that in Afghanistan. We were taught about all these people are these insurgents and all of this kind of stuff. And that's actually so far from the truth. There's very little people over there who are insurgents. The majority of them are just wrong place, wrong time. Like, that's why it was so disheartening to watch earlier this year, everything that was going on, because I got to meet and get to know the locals. I got to meet and get to know the majority of the people. And that's people everywhere. Majority of people are actually good on the inside. They have been taught to be whatever, right? Society, through school, through the fact that you have to have this 9 to 5 and go to this particular job and not be self-sufficient. That's another thing too. The more we rely on any system one way or another, and we can't be self-sufficient, we're feeding the traumas, we're feeding the narcissistic traits. I do believe though, for the people who, because at the end of the day, those people who really do have a positive feel off of it, even if it is learned behavior, they are sociopaths or psychopaths, right? That's the or narcissists who they dwell in that. Again, even in that, from a psychological standpoint, narcissists are not born, they are raised, they are made because of a deficit of something that they did not receive. So again, you don't actually really like it. You just have been programmed to think that you do. And that's the part that's really unfortunate, because those types of minds, they're never going to be able to come out of that hole. No matter how hard they try, no matter how much work that they put in, it is literally not possible. And that's a hard pill to swallow.
So let me jump in right here. So now, how then do you advise someone who is encountering that person? How do you advise them to navigate that? Because it's hard, hard to deal with somebody who is never going to evolve. They're never going to evolve past their nonsense. It is hard to, and I'm choosing my words intentionally. This is beyond a challenge, right? It's hard to deal with somebody who's never, ever going to evolve past that. And you've come to that realization and they haven't. You will always be this person because this is who you want to be. This is who you aspired to become. And so now that you have become this person, you'll never be somebody different because this was always your dream. And so in order to not throw you away, I have to learn how to deal with this, or I have to walk away from you and leave you behind. Sometimes the people that we have to leave behind are people that we love dearly. So
very much so.
How do you, and sometimes it's, now what happens if it's like the majority of your nuclear family?
Then this is the reality, right? People die, right?
Yes.
Okay. Mourn them now, even though they have breath. I mourn my mother every day. She has breath. She has life. I mourn her daily, but I know that her level of narcissism is not anything that is conducive for my mental health and my physical health. So I will forever maintain my peace and be at my distance. That is something that most people can't stomach me saying, because I am talking about my mother, but I'm able to do that because I know the type of person that I'm dealing with if I do not. I know what that looks like for me on the back end if I do not. Again, I have seizure disorder, and I'm grateful for that in a way that I never was before because it is my meter. If I have a seizure around you, that means you bring me stress. I can't do you. And that's okay. There's someone out there who can. It's not me. And what I'm not going to do is try to fit the square peg in the circle hole because that's insanity, right? The reality of it is there could be a lot of people in this world that we love dearly. My love for you has nothing to do with if I interact with you.
Louder.
It doesn't. Like, the love has nothing to do with the interaction. And that's the part that people miss. How we are related has nothing to do with what relationship we have. We are related, but we don't have to have a relationship.
You came to preach today, I see. Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And that's the part. We've been programmed to see these people in this particular light when they may not have put themselves in that light. So if you've placed a person on a pedestal, you have to take ownership for that and remove them. And that's a us thing. That's an inner thing. I had to remove my mother from the pedestal, you know, and that was challenging. But I've been through things in life that are way harder. And although that was a challenge, I eat those up. I can take a challenge. I like challenge accepted because if it's for me, if it's for my greater good, and especially when I know where my intent is not from a place of hurt, harm, nor is it from a place of anger or from a place of anything, even a lack of empathy. I understand that what I did in my choices in life to be completely and utterly different are phenomenal. I understand that it makes me a miracle. I get it. And I understand that it wasn't simple. That wasn't an easy decision to make. I made those choices and I continue to make conscious choices every day to do different than what I was taught. And that's really, you know, so when we're talking about accepting and dealing with those narcissists around us, those narcissist people, and because it's different than having someone who has narcissistic qualities. Actually, everyone has narcissistic qualities. But when you're talking about a true narcissist, you have to be in a place of, I love you from here. Because this is safest for both of us. It's no different than when I'm having conversations with people about a person who suffers from mental disorders or mental illness, right? And when they are dealing with a psychosis, there are sometimes and some people who do not make the situation better. They actually make it worse. So it is your responsibility to recognize when you are dealing with your family members who suffer from any type of psychosis or manics, are you a safe space or are you a trigger? And if you want to be of assistance to them and you recognize you are a trigger, remove yourself. You know, it is no different when we are dealing with the narcissist. If you can't be in a place of in one ear, out of another, knowing how to deal with them. For example, I have a brother who he also is a narcissist and probably a sociopath. I can deal with him all the days as long. I can, because his stuff doesn't actually affect me. I know how to disassociate what he goes through and what he has going on from what I go through and what I have going on. Now, my mother, on the other hand, I have actual heavy traumas that are very, very, very layered from her that affect me, unfortunately, still to this day. So it is very vital to my mental health to maintain that distance. If that wasn't an issue, because I have other siblings and family members who they don't have the same trauma with my mother that I did. So yes, they're able to operate with her and it does not affect their everyday. You have to that's the inner work. That is the assessment for self. When you find it in a place where you're dealing with a narcissist and it is too complicated, it is too much, it is too stressful to you, back up. No one's asking you to do this, except for probably the narcissist. And if you recognize they're a narcissist, then you don't have to play the game with them.
So here's a question. Would you consider the backing up a trauma response?
No, I actually don't. And I have been grateful to have therapists to help me that see it as it's not. I think that the trauma response is I can't leave. That's the trauma response. The trauma response is, that's my mother, that's my brother, that's my sibling, that's my best friend. We got history. We go back. How dare I? That's the trauma response.
Friend is not necessarily your best friend.
Come on and talk to it. That's my oldest friend. I have an oldest friend. Yeah, I have those. Yeah,
it's not my best friend though. Your best friend. Your best friend, you might not have met them yet.
Yeah.
That's a real thing.
Facts.
So it's not a trauma response to back away. It is more of a trauma response to stay when you should leave.
Yes, very much so. It's no different than being in an abusive relationship. Because at what point do you stop being the victim? And well, actually, no, you stay. What point do you stop being a victim and become the survivor and learn how to thrive? But most people find such comfort in victimhood, because that's the part that gets you attention. That's the one that gets people looking at you. That's the one that gets you the conversation. You know, that's the one that gets you to woe is me. Mm-hmm.
And that's where people get to sit there and talk about how you're surviving it.
Yes.
So now you're the hero.
Yes.
As well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I'm going through these things, but you know what? It's okay, because like I've learned how to weather these storms, and I've learned how to do this, and I've learned how to do that.
But you're still in it, because you can't be the protagonist and the antagonist in your own
at the same time.
Come on now, pick a side. Pick one. Just
I'm
one.
glad I brought this guest on, right? Because
I don't know if they ready, child. I don't know if they ready, honey. I'm just saying.
All of it. I am. So now, how do we get people to be fearless enough or confident enough? And I say fearless enough because whereas the confidence would have to override the fear, right? Yes. I still feel like it needs to be fearlessness, because there are people who lack confidence, but not because they're afraid, right? So how do we get them fearless enough to acknowledge that there is trauma present, that the response that they're giving is rooted in the trauma, to acknowledge it not only to themselves, but to acknowledge it to someone else? Like I said, this and all of this came from this one conversation we were having in the DM. That response rocked me, because I was like, that is so true for so many. We are responding from trauma. But I felt like that was so, and granted, we are building a very solid foundation for our friendship, which is beautiful. But I felt like that was so transparent so early on, to say, I apologize, that's me responding from my trauma. Most of us, it takes us a long time to get to that place to be able to say, listen, so I got basket case tendencies, and so I'm trying to deal with that. And I don't like the fact that I have basket case tendencies. So I try to act like I don't, because if I can act like I don't, then I don't have to deal with it. And maybe you won't notice it, as opposed to being upfront with it and being like, listen, I talk to the wall, because I'll be by myself and they don't talk back to me, but at least I feel comforted because I hear a voice. You know what I'm saying? And letting people know what it is up front, who you are up front, and letting them really decide, like, yeah, I can bang with you. No, I can't. How do we get to that place of fearlessness to identify, to recognize, to acknowledge, and to be transparent about it earlier on in the space?
One of the things that I've been practicing in 2021 was hearing past my traumas.
Say that again.
Right? Hearing past my trauma, meaning when people are talking to me and they say something that triggers me and it triggers a trauma, instead of being reactive right off bat, because that's what we do, I keep listening, because that's the key thing, that is the familiarity, right? One of the things for me is I've always been very emotionally intelligent, way sooner than I could even imagine. I have friends from high school as an adult now that I found out I didn't know the talks on the steps with me, what that was for them. And we're adults, and I'm having people from when I'm 14, 13 years old, who would sit and come and they sit on the step, roll their little blunt, smoke their weed. I wasn't smoking them, but I was allowed to sit on the steps. And I was their mental safe space, and did not find out until this year. I was their mental safe space when we were children, because their living circumstances were so horrific and so horrendous. I've always been able to be empathetic. And I think that that's what most humans miss and lack, is the empathy. Empathy doesn't mean that I've been exactly where you are. It means that I understand that you're hurting. And although I may not have experienced exactly what you've experienced, I have experienced pain. And I know that pain, in whatever form it comes, it sucks. And it is not fun to deal with and go through. But when we're in a place when people are talking to us about their pains, and their pains trigger us, we can't hear past the trauma, especially when they say something for them that is a part of how they've coped, and it doesn't align with your coping style, right? We cut our ears off. And then we cut off, and then we start judging in our head because they don't know, and they ain't that. What happens is you no longer hear them, and neither they don't hear themselves. No one's listening anymore. And you're walking around with a community full of people who feel unheard. So when we're talking about like this fearlessness for me it is needed to have confidence. There's a lot of people who have faux confidence, because true confidence comes when you operate from a place of fearlessness. It's just like people are faux. It's a lot of things, faux woke, faux empaths. Like, it's a lot of things, and we can see it in your everyday. We see you.
Listen, because I want y'all to know, when she says faux, because this is for everybody that's FAUX, because some of y'all pronouncing that Fox, and it ain't never been. Amen, saints. Amen. Please continue. Yes. Faux woke, faux intelligent,
faux mothers, everything. Faux fathers, faux relationships. Faux friendships. Those are frenemies, right? Like, a lot of things are so fake, but it's because so many people feel unheard, unseen. They feel like no one understands them. So many people think they are on this island of pain by themselves.
Or they feel like they have to adopt another personality type in order to be valued, to be respected, to be acknowledged. They feel like they have to become someone else because who they are isn't being generally accepted, when the reality of the situation is it's not being accepted because all of those other people who aren't accepting you are acting as well. And if they could act as themselves and actually be themselves, they would accept you as yourself.
That's the mask on, mask off. That's what I call it. Take the mask off. I don't operate with masks. I wear different hats, but my face is always the same, baby.
Ooh. Ooh.
You see what I'm saying? And that's the difference. That's what people forget. You can wear multiple hats. I am a Jackie of all trades. That is one of the reasons why it's hard for me to introduce myself, because I play in all arenas. I've learned a lot of skills over the years. Why wouldn't I? Those hats are up here. This is always the same. This will not change. And that's the part. People, right now, we wearing masks. You can't see the face.
You know what? And I'm so glad you said that, because I think that that's really interesting, because I've experienced that a lot over the last 2 years. It's so interesting to me to see how many people can't identify you with just your eyes.
Yeah.
Now that you have on a mask, they don't know who you are.
That's so weird to me. Meanwhile, like if you grew up anywhere up north where Islam was a thing, I could tell a person by their eyes because of the sunnas, or, garbed up and all of the sisters and everything. I can tell.
But they can't. People that you've seen every day for how long? You don't see me for 30 days and now you don't know who I am because all you can see is this. So my question is then, what were you looking at? If you can't identify me by my eyes, what were you looking at when you were looking at me?
Most people don't give eye contact. Do you know that's one of the things I was told? I was told by somebody I met the first time. He called me boss lady. As soon as he met me, he's like, all right, boss lady. And I mean, you could tell bro thorough. He's thorough, man. And I'm like, why is this man calling me boss lady? And we finally had a conversation via the phone after we met in person. He said, you know why I called you boss lady? You would not let me take my eyes off of you. You gave me eye contact the whole time we was talking, and I ain't even gonna hold you. Like me, it made me a little intimidated. And he said, because he knew I was looking through his soul. And that's why people don't do eye contact, because the same way you see me, I see you. You can't hide that spirit in my eyes, baby. And when people choose not to see themselves, then they most likely they won't see you either. That's why people don't do mirror work. You know, most folks can't stand in the mirror and talk to themselves and sing to themselves the way you do. Baby, that's a challenge. That in itself is fearless. That's fearless to me. Like I remember the first time after we met and I followed you on Instagram, and it was the first post, and you set everything up. I said, what is she about to do? I mean, I was in it, honey. And you started singing, and it did two things, because I am learning to accept I sing. I was always told no, because in church, I didn't sing the right way. I call it flat notes, because I have what they say bravado. I say flutter. I don't know the terminology, right? And I was always that kid where if I sang around people who were my friends, family, it was always the same notion. Who sang that song? And you proudly say who sings the song, and then you hear, well, let them sing it. And then so you mute, right? And people think that's not a big deal, but you don't understand what that does to a person who's already
it's traumatic,
psychological, very traumatic, especially if someone else heard me sing. I literally in high school, one of my friends, I was humming, and she was sitting in front of me in math class. And it was the first time my palms got sweaty. I started shaking. It was my first anxiety attack that I didn't know I was having, because she turned around with tears in her eyes. She had sat there and let me sing, because someone else across the room was singing. And I can't remember what song they were singing, but they were singing my song. And I'm sitting behind her and I'm doing my math work and I'm just humming. And she turned around and she was like, oh my God, Ish, I didn't know. And I'm like, what? Because I didn't know she could hear me. And I freaked out. I freaked out. I got up. I went to the bathroom because I needed to cry. I had messed up. Oh my gosh. She heard me. I can't let people hear me. You know, they're going to judge me. Oh man, the spiral was real. And I was senior in high school when that happened. Senior in high school, freaking out because someone heard me. And then we senior in high school. Aysha could be one of the lead singers. I lost it on her. How dare you? I don't sing. Don't do that. That's not okay. That's a trauma response. That was me responding from my trauma. I had to accept that I can sing. Those moments came when you watch somebody sit in front of a mirror with a microphone and put it on social media. She's crazy. Oh my goodness. And it was like, I want to be that crazy. I want to be that bold. I want to be that fearless, right? And surrounding yourself, even on social medias, around people that are that fearless and that bold. Yet you have people who they don't even have mirrors in their house because they cannot stand their own image. They cannot look in that mirror and see who they are, but they are probably some of the first people that will project what other people should do. So yeah, no, of course people can't recognize people's eyes. Eye contact and looking into the soul isn't a thing that people want to practice, because if you look into my soul and what you find is the pits of hell, you know, my secret's out. Everyone knows now. Problem is, we already do. That's the thing. People who have been hurt can recognize a person who's hurt. We resonate with your pain. We know. We know you just need a hug, baby. We know that. That's why we hug ourselves. That's why we're fearless enough to hug ourselves. Be kind to ourselves and nurture us. You know? Even when people talk about what they didn't get from their parents, if you are an adult, give space for what you didn't receive from that parent, right? But guess what? You get to be your own parent to that inner child every day. Choose different. Don't choose the trauma, though. Can't have trauma responses. But I am looking forward to when people hear past the trauma.
I think that's so important. So I feel like in effect, it is a trauma response, but it's a positive trauma response. It's the same way how stress is stress, good stress, bad stress, stress is stress, right? I feel like it is a trauma response, but it is either the more positive trauma response or the more evolved trauma response. It's because I still acknowledge what's happening here, but instead of responding to it apologetically or kowtowing, feeling like I have to genuflect, feeling all of those things, right? Instead of me operating in that space, if I back away, I'm not backing away out of fear. I'm backing away because I am now allowing you the space to be you and protecting the space where I am me.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
That's superbly important that we identify that we put a title to that this is not me running away. Yes. I'm backing away.
Yes.
I'm giving you the space to be you, and whoever you need to be and whoever you want to be in this space, very much God bless. But I'm also protecting the space where I am, because in this space, peace resides.
That's right.
And I like peace. And you come in with chaos. And so here's the boundary line. And you can't come across the boundary line.
So how'd you feel about part 1? Ladies and gentlemen, did you enjoy it? It gets better. So comment below. If you would like to submit a listener letter, feel free to email me at mybrilliantfriendpassion@gmail.com. If you would like to be a financial supporter of the pod, feel free to donate at any of the below listed links. Click the link, click the link, click the link. You can donate through PayPal. You can donate through my Linktree. You can donate through Cash App, or you can donate through my Podbean page. All donations are welcome. Every penny counts. Every penny is appreciated. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I need to say, but when you're not going by a script, sometimes these things just pop out of your head. So I'm not going to belabor the time. You go forth, you be great, be filled with bliss, be armed and empowered with knowledge. Know that you don't have to respond from your trauma. Listen past your trauma and then respond. We got more to talk about next week. So until then, in all things, be passionate. I'll see you later. Don't forget to subscribe. Share.